You lock me in your gaze, and try though I might, I cannot look away. You're not what I expected to find, and now I'm forgetting why I should run from your side. Yeah. One gentle kiss, the pain alleviates. Poisonous lips annihilate me, and every dream that I trade for this bliss. But who can resist? I'm starving alone in the wilderness. Beautiful distraction, keep me hypnotized, and I fall for the enemy. Powerless reaction, I am paralyzed, and now you get the best of me. Is there no one safe from your deceit and lies? I know I've been told this road isn't paved with gold, but I see it glitter now. I'm sold for the enemy. My hands are tied. You've captured your next slave, but it feels justified. I don't even try to break free, and now I'm blind to the truth at my side. That we win before we begin if we stand and fight. This beautiful distraction, keep me hypnotized, and I fall for the enemy. Powerless reaction, I am paralyzed, and now you get the best of me. Is there no one safe from your deceit and lies? I know I've been told this road isn't paved with gold, but I see it glitter now. I'm sold for this. Ooh, we're going down, we're going down. Yeah, we're going down, we're going down. We're going down, we're going down. Na 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 na, we're going down, we're going down. Beautiful distraction, keep me hypnotized, and I fall for the enemy. Powerless reaction, I am paralyzed, and now you get the best of me. Is there no one safe from your deceit and lies? I know I'm told this road isn't paved with gold, but I see it glitter now. I'm sold for this love. Welcome. This is what's left of my heart. I know you've wanted in here for years, so welcome. Sit in my chair, look at my art. Never mind the flame-licked drapes or shattered chandelier. Kick off your shoes, stay a while and sing the blues with me. But before you do, heed my warning. I'm a ruin. I only haunt this heart. I would give my soul, but it's already gone. I will have you because I'm lonely, but I will use you up and make a ruin.
All right. Let us get this show on the road. Welcome, everyone, to the TTRPG Theater. I am your host, Rob, otherwise known as Phantom NJ. And tonight we are going to be discussing min-maxing your character for roleplay, as opposed to min-maxing your character for other reasons, such as combat, being useful, whatever. We're concerned tonight about roleplay because, well, the first two words in RPG are role-playing. This is a topic that was brought to you via a user in Discord. So if you are not a member of our Discord, please consider dropping by. We have lots of discussion that goes on of varying types of different TTRPGs. We do discuss a lot of Castles and Crusades, mostly because I am, a regular castle keeper for Castle Crusades, as you can see by my fine T-shirt. Castle Crusades is made by Troll Lord Games. Troll Lord Games, they make Castle Crusades. They also make Amazing Adventures, they're both based on the Siege engine. They've got a couple of other smaller things, some of which is going to hopefully be reprinted at some point. They are also now the license holders, once again, for printing Gary Gygax's, the late Gary Gygax works. I can talk tonight. It's going to be a fun evening, I can see already. And things like Castle Zagig, or Zagig, depending on how you want to say it, Gygaxian Fantasy Worlds. There's a Kickstarter out for The Hermit, which is a very large-scale adventure. So if you're interested, check out Kickstarter for Troll Lord Games products. But they are also a sponsor for the channel. And because they're a sponsor for the channel, we are able to do a giveaway. And I am going to get that set up now. The giveaway is for a $10 $10 product, $10 coupon for a PDF from their website. And I can see that we are now on an ad break. So hopefully that will not take very long. But for those of you who are with us, yes, TLG is a sponsor of this channel. And we are very, very happy to have them along. So let's see, where do we begin? When it comes to role playing, it's an interesting thing. I don't need, it's probably been talked enough, and mentioned in other places. But the history and the origins of Dungeons and Dragons in general are really rooted in the concept of war games. That's where it was born out of. That's why a lot of the initial rules for what they now call OD&D are what they are. It really was a war game, game built by war gamers that morphed into something different. As such, a lot of the original D&D stuff, whether even right up through, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and AD&D 2E, was more built on the concept of, you have your character has a race, if you want to call them ancestries now, that's fine. Lineages, different, whatever your preferred name for it is. I've kind of grown fond of ancestries, just because I think it's a little bit more descriptive, and it removes some of the issues. But sometimes I fall back into old habits, and sometimes just because you're talking to players and they've got the book in front of them, depending on what game they're playing, I'll go with whatever the given game uses for that type of thing. But you have your characters, your character's lineage. You have their character class, and you had their alignment. And with those three, you had a pseudo background for your character. What your character was about, who they were. But in the early days, how much role playing was involved could vary greatly from table to table. Some did a lot, would do a more story like setting, especially if they were trying to follow along, if they were based on troll art games with the raid. Thank you so much. Lord Zumba, good to see you, Jay. Thank you so much for the subscription. I'll just restart a little for those of you who just came in. We are talking about min-maxing your character for roleplay. What I want to talk about here is, min-maxing is something, to me, min-maxing is something that really came about in terms of TTRPGs, probably with the advent of 3.0. You could min-max, min-maxing normally meant looking for the ways to be most effective. I guess there was a little bit of it in AD&D and possibly even, in the BCMI and earlier, where, you were worried about weapon speeds and armor types. And I know AD&D, first edition especially had damage against specific armor types, but I think it really started in 3.0, third edition, where you were looking at picking different feats and different skills with a very clear mind towards building out your character. This is not that topic. We're not here to discuss, how to make your character most effective in combat. We're here more to talk about making your character most effective for role playing. And among the things that I want to discuss is, how you do it really with different games, because TTRPGs, a lot of them have similar traits, and some of them go in a completely different direction. And, I guess the question that's been bandied about, and I've seen it in different places, whether it be on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok videos, is, is there a best system for min-maxing for role playing? Well, okay, yeah, I'm gonna. I get what you're saying, Phantom SG13. This is gonna be a little bit of a journey, because yeah, when you think about it, it's not so much a straight up what you would normally call min-maxing. However, that's not to say that there aren't things you can do, and I might have used a double negative there. So if I did, please forgive me. I have had my fair share of coffee. For the ticket, I think you just need, actually it still puts in one. You don't need to put in a number after the ticket, but Diamond Anvil, I did see you enter. So yep, you are there. Thank you very much. So when I talk about min-maxing for roleplay, what are we talking about? Let's put it this way. What are some of the things that we think about when it comes to our characters and talking about who our characters are? I mentioned just before everyone came in, you have your character's ancestry, race, lineage, whichever term you want to use for it, they're all fine. As I mentioned, that I tend to use whatever the particular game we're playing uses, just for the sake of those who are, playing that game. And especially if they're new, that's what they know, that this is how it's described in the game. And that, I'm okay with that. Others may be a little bit more particular, and I've got no issue with that either. I can roll with the punches. You've got your character class. Basically your character class, depending on what game you're playing, is going to have a description of what your character does. It might have some hint as to why they do the things type of stuff they do, depending on which game you're playing. Sometimes it may just be these are the skills your characters have. This is the general theme of your character. Have at it. And then, after that, there is, the character backstory. And this is the thing that it's not the key tool for role playing. Honestly, I'm kind of a minimalist when it comes to character backstories. this is something that I'll work with whoever my GM is, or if I'm the GM, I'll work with my players on. You know, I want to know, I'll have something down for who their family is in terms of character, and possible people that might be important to the story or that I might like to interact with at some point. I'll have, depending if I'm well aware of the campaign setting, I might have where they're from and, some motivations. And, these are the kind of things where you start from, give you a base idea of your characters. Some people like to be a lot more, a lot more verbose about it. And there's nothing wrong with that, though. Sometimes it can be too much information. If you're expecting the GM to, every GM you play with to remember 6 pages of backstory, you're probably going to be disappointed in some cases. I mean, it's, they're going to go look at it and they're going to figure out those things that they can work with. Some may soak it all in, and that's fantastic. I can't do that. I would love to say that I do that. As much as I love reading, but I'm going to take highlights, and I might later go relook at this backstory again and make sure that I'm not, screwing something up. But other than that, give me the salient details as it is. If you got a long backstory and you can do a too long didn't read portion of it. So for, kind of summarize, wonderful, fantastic. Now the question becomes is like, okay, you've got your backstory, you've got your class, and you've got your race, lineage, etc. Taryn, good to see you. Thank you for the follows, DJ Sacrosanct and Touch of Evil. Is that Touch of Evil too long didn't read? Is that a TLDR at the end I see there, or am I have it backwards? Or is it just TDR? And I forgot where I'm going, so just TDR. Okay. May I ask what the TDR is? You don't have to tell me, but just curious. All right, there you go. That works. So once you have all that, the question becomes in terms of, your characters and how you handle role playing within a game. Now, the interesting thing is, there's one of the things that's come up recently is that the feeling that certain games better allow for role play, and I'd like to challenge that notion a bit. I will say this: there are certain games that, in terms of role play, they do a better job of mechanizing role play, making it important to how the game plays. Troy Cannibal, thank you so much for the 5 gift subs. That is very, very kind of you, sir. I really appreciate it. We are talking about min-maxing your character for roleplay. So what I want to do now is I want to take a look at some of the games, and let's talk about how roleplay is affected by the mechanics of some of these games. And we're going to start off with, hey, Troll Art Games. As I mentioned, they are a sponsor of the channel. So, and I'm a big fan. I'll be running several games at GaryCon for Troll Art Games, which is coming up really, really soon. It's leaving for Founders and Legends and GaryCon a week from tomorrow. So that's going to be fantastic. We will have a stream next week, though. I will have a stream before I go. So let's start off with Castles and Crusades. Castles and Crusades, despite the fact that it was released in 2004, this is the 20th anniversary of It's the 50th anniversary of D&D. It's the 20th anniversary of Castles and Crusades, which is fantastic. It's also a game that's had exactly one edition. Quite a few printings. I think we're now up to like 9 or 10 for the Player's Handbook. 5 for Monsters and Treasures, 3 for I think we might be 4 for the Castle Keeper's Guide. But you know, when it comes to Castle and Crusades, really honestly, you've got your character class, and let's take a look at the cleric. And you know, we talked about briefly about the fact that the character class kind of talks about what your job is. Let's go with the description. Upon the fields of battle where good and evil struggle, there stride holy warriors dedicated to the service of a deity, their martial ability enhanced by divine dispensation. They obey the will of the gods and influence others through faith in their deity's tenets, actions on the field of battle, and by bringing justice or retribution to their foes. It talks a little bit about archetypes, what kind of priests, what kind of clerics can be, and purpose. Be good or evil, lawful to chaotic, honestly depends on the god you're following. And pretty much, the fact that, you should be following the tenets of your god. You're going against them, you're going to run into problems. Okay, so, it's a good start. And here's the thing. There is nothing mechanical within the game beyond that for roleplay, but what really, honestly, you don't need anything else. And where Castle and Crusades is concerned, the interesting thing I found, and one of the things that I do love about this game, is from a roleplay standpoint, the rules, while the rule set doesn't force any type of roleplay upon you, what it does do, because of the nature of the siege engine, it gets out of your way. It really makes it so that you can roleplay. You can choose what your character's background is, where they come from, how they act, what their personality is, and due to the nature of the siege engine, where everything is based on your ability scores, and you're encouraged to really try anything. There's no hoarding certain things to specific classes beyond spell casting. And there's a penalty for doing things that are the specialty of another class. Beyond that, you're encouraged to try it. Your character's encouraged to try anything, be anything, do anything. And the game just really gets out of your way, and it's a beautiful thing. So, from a play standpoint, okay, it may be a bit more on the side of the ownership for roleplay is really on the side of the player, what their imagination is. There's some hints based on your class, and let's take a look at one of the races. And because a friend of mine keeps talking about dwarves, we'll go with dwarves. Dwarves hail from the depths of the earth and have lived there for ages beyond count. One of the things I should mention is that dwarves here are mostly taken from basically some of the standard D&D style lingo, but there's also the race in Castle and Crusades are also somewhat grounded in the fact that there is a campaign world actually there's a couple of campaign worlds from Troller games, but specifically the world of Aird, which has, so if you're not a big fan of some of the stuff in here for your campaign setting, go ahead and change it up. It doesn't have to be this way, but just for the sake of this, we'll go with the description here. Dwarves hail from the depths of the earth and live there for ages beyond count. Much like the stone they resemble, dwarves possess great fortitude and an indomitable will of granite. They are proud, loyal, and honorable people with lives said to be as long as the tunnels they delve beneath wind-scoured mountains. Renowned for their stonework, metal crafting, dwarves expend much of their time perfecting their skills and mining ever deeper for rare ore and gems. And then there in the dark, those dark recesses, dwarves unearthed many abominations and clashed with ferocious enemies. But the underworld is home to innumerable and usually baneful creatures who consider dwarves their mortal foes. So again, it provides you with some background to that particular character race, and that also helps with role playing. Needless to say, you don't need to feel compelled to completely stick with it, because sometimes adventuring is a lot of adventures in various stories are the ones who don't quite feel the same as the rest of their people. They want something more for themselves, but it at least gives you a starting point. And again, the game gets out of your way after that. So it really is up to the player to decide how much of the stock information that you get you want to use, how much really applies to their character. And then again, it's helpful if you work with your castle keeper, your dungeon master, game master, whatever you want to call whatever title the person running the game is called, and figure out, okay, well, how do I make this work with being different, or really honestly, if you want to go with being who they are, figuring out how it works in the space of the campaign. But again, it's going to be really heavily focused on the player, because other than those really basic things, there's nothing in a game that is forcing you to role play a particular way. It can be freeing. It really can be freeing, but it also can come at a cost if the person is not comfortable going out there on their own. And to be honest with you, some people just aren't. Some people aren't going to be comfortable with heavy role play, even if you give them all of those things, on a silver platter. I have friends I played with a long time who they love the mechanical aspects of the game, but role play has never been their thing, and that's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. They do what they can and find other ways. We find other ways to help them shine, help their character shine, and you go from there. But we're going to contrast it a bit with our next game, and this is a game that is my, I for a long time I've been a D&D player since AD&D first edition back in the very early 80s, like 1980 or so. I played and run every version of D&D with, or I should say, AD&D through 5e, with the exception of 3 and 3.5, honestly, and that had nothing to do with not wanting to. It had to do with timing in my life and such. But I mean, I've done 4e, I've done 5e, both as a player and a DM. And to me, when I'm looking for that type of game now, when I want to go for the more, I guess, minimalist or more old school, I go back to Castles and Crusades. I could run AD&D first or second edition. I still have all my books, but I like Castles and Crusades because of the old school feel to the character classes and such, and how there isn't this concept of building your character to compared to like the newer game where building your character is very much consideration. Now, one thing I like about Pathfinder 2e is the fact that there is a building of your character, and there's some argument to be made as far as min-maxing. There are probably things that you can do to min-max your character for actual combat and effectiveness. However, it doesn't get quite as out of hand as I've heard with other editions. I know that 3.5, I don't know about 3.0, but I've like heard 3.5 and Pathfinder 1 first edition could get a little bit out of control, where you need to build your character, and you also need to build it right. That might also have been a case where the tools weren't quite, we have better digital tools now, so it may not have been quite as much of a concern. You could have had some of those things off. Pathfinder 2E, I'm finding that you get a lot more license in how you build a character, and it's one of those things where you really want to start off your character. For me, from a min-maxing and from a role play perspective, you want to kind of build off a theme. And what I say by that, one of the things with Pathfinder 2 is you still have your ancestry. Well, they use ancestries and backgrounds. No Illusionist Assassin in 1E, 2E was, very, very nasty. Having an assassin that could play with your mind and just make you basically really just toy with you and then effectively one shot you if they got their assassination roll. It just that build could wreck people. Probably why, and that's one of the things where it also. Thankfully, one of the things was, I believe in at least 1E, the assassin had to be evil. I don't think you were left. If I remember correctly, you couldn't even be neutral. You had to at least be some type of evil. So it's a matter of whether or not your DM was going to allow that. Now from Pathfinder, again, Pathfinder 2E, you still have things like, you still have your dwarf, or still has, a bit of description, talk about the society, and Pathfinder 2E, they do have their own, Pathfinder has its own game world, the world of Golarion. So I'm assuming that most of the stuff here is, would be kind of built on what dwarves from that particular game world are like. Well, Highhelm within Golarion is a dwarven stronghold within Golarion. You still have your classes. There's still the cleric, and the cleric still has, a bit of a description. It's not quite. Highhelm, I agree. Highhelm is a very good book. As a matter of fact, friends of ours at Roll for Perception, and I hope I've got this right. On Tuesday nights, are running a Pathfinder 2E, a Pathfinder 2E adventure path, Sky King's Tomb, which actually takes place in Highhelm. So, if you haven't already, please, when you get a chance, go over to Roll for Perception, give Terry and Evelyn a follow. I actually play there on Monday nights in a custom campaign that Terry is running, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, so you still have your character classes, and let's see, on here they talk about deities work their will upon the world in infinite ways, and you serve as one of their most stalwart mortal servants. Blessed with divine magic, you live the ideals of your faith, adorn yourself with the symbols of your church, and train diligently to wield your deity's favorite weapon. Martin, I'm glad to hear that. I really, I've been I've known Terry and Evelyn for a few years now, and I'm happy to say that they are friends of mine. So it just happened to be that we were lucky enough that they were running something on Thursday, and the person I normally raid on Thursdays was off, so I was able to take advantage and bring in some viewers, and I'm glad that you were able to toss them a follow. However, let's going back to Pathfinder 2 and some of the things it does. One of the interesting ways that they, help build a character where it kind of does a dual job of, I won't say min-maxing, but helping to build out the theme of your character is the way the feat system works. Because of the fact that you have, thank you so much for the follow, Phantom SG13. Always great to see another Phantom wandering around. In that you have feats that are built, some are generalized feats, not specific really to anything. Anyone can take them. They've got feats also that you end up having to take at different levels based on your class archetype. And you also, depending on whether or not your game is using them, there's also a free archetype which can help even further differentiate your character and their class from others. So you grab feats based on that. Let's see. I believe they also. What am I missing? I feel like I'm missing something in terms of the archetypes. Yeah, I'm definitely missing something, or in terms of the feats. Spooky channel, all the phantoms. Gee, thanks, Aaron. Exactly what I was going for. It's good to be spooky, especially in March, we need to take advantage of that when October comes. Not that I'm rushing. I'd like it to, like to enjoy the spring, especially with all the things that I have coming. Hold on 1 second. I want to take a quick look because that's going to bother me now that I can't remember what the other feats are. And I just realized I muted myself, which didn't help. So, you'll have your heritage, and that you can differentiate yourself a bit in your in terms of your heritage, your class feats, your archetype feats, general skills. You might have a more specialized skill type, but there are all kinds of things that will make your character different from other characters, and that really I think helps with roleplay, in the sense that for those who who might struggle with it doing it all on their own, and I don't know that it is really specific to newer players or older players. It doesn't really have to be specific to either, but again, there are some people who might not be able to figure out how they want to bring their character to life and make it feel like they need to play a new class and a new ancestry just so they're playing a different character. So the ability to do that by deciding on a theme a little ahead of time, and it might require using a tool to maybe build out your character for a few, a test run of building out your character for a few levels, and seeing what's available and seeing where you might want to take your character. Like for example, I played in a level 1 through 10 adventure path on Roll for Perception. I played a dwarven gunslinger, and I decided that I wanted the character to be a shoot from the hip to dual wielding, basically 2-pistol gunslinger. I had a backstory for him that I found the things that worked towards that backstory. So I could plan out ahead of time the things that I wanted to do. And so it wasn't like I got to each level and said, okay, what is what skill is just the best it wasn't what's going to make me do more damage. I mean, I wasn't looking to do the opposite of that, but I wanted things that were not only useful, but played into who the character was. So, and it was nice to have those choices available in the game. But again, it because of the fact that they're going to be more, these are more mechanical in nature. It helps with the theme. It doesn't push you necessarily towards role playing. You could do just the theme and still not really role play towards those things, other when it comes time to do combat or trying to attempt something. So let's go with half and half. I mean, it's in terms of what it does for your role playing. I think it helps, but it's not necessarily going to say this is. It's not forcing you to play that character that way. You're still have to be a little bit self-driven. Then move on to a third game. And this is one that speaking of spooky, Taryn invoked the spooky, so I'm bringing the spooky. And that is Vaesen. Vaesen, a Nordic role-playing game from Free League Publishing. I am a big fan of Free League Publishing. I've been playing one of their other games, Dragonbane, up until recently. And I plan on running some Vaesen. I need to really get down with the rule set. I played it once from a player's perspective. I have not yet attempted to run a game. So, in Vaesen, you're going to play a character. When you're building your character, it's an interesting thing. You build your character kind of from you do archetype. You start with personality, and they label it personality, which part of it is your archetype, which for in other games is your character class. But then they go even further and they have you start working, even though pretty much all games should have this kind of stuff, like your age, your name, and all the stuff. It does specifically ask you for other things. Your motivation, why are you willing to risk your life to track down and fight these Vaesen, which is, I don't want to call them otherworldly. I'm trying to find the best definition for what Vaesen are, but basically these creatures that are responsible for a lot of death and traumatizing of people and all kinds of supernatural. They're basically supernatural creatures. Interestingly enough, the next thing after motivation asks you for trauma. The trauma is the event that gave you the sight. Sight within the game of Vaesen is only certain people can actually see Vaesen. And usually it's because they've had an encounter with it. Either they've been directly affected or they witnessed, someone they knew being affected. But they ask you, straight up, what was the trauma? What gave you the sight? And from a game standpoint, that's kind of where your character really gets started. I mean, you got your character class, which is fine, but your character class is, while it does affect mechanically, affect the game mechanically, it's not your class's it's not the game's reason, your character's reason du jour. It's not why they're there. They're there because they've been affected by Vaesen, and it has led them to want to lead the fight against them. Next up, they come up with your dark secret. Your dark secret is a problem you are ashamed of and therefore keep to yourself. It may be linked to your trauma or concern something completely different. But either way, it will actively affect the game. It makes things difficult for you. In Uppsala, which is the location where, one of the locations this game takes place, as well as on your travels. Perhaps you are hounded by government agents, hiding your alcoholism, suffering from delusions, or maybe there is something about in your family that no one must know about. And it's interesting here because it is the game master's job to make sure that your dark secret comes into focus in your stories. Incorporating the secret into the game makes the mysteries more fun, even if it may cause more trouble for your player character. And again, because this is the type of game, it is Nordic horror role-playing. You know, there's the fact that things should not be coming easy to these characters. They should be, honestly, it's one of those games where your characters should probably spend at least some of the time traumatized by the things that they're dealing with. Let's see. Next up, we've got our characteristics, which this is where we start talking about the stats, skills, and talents. Basically, it's your character build. I'll see you in a bit, Jay. Thanks. Thank you so much for the resub and for dropping in. You know, this is where we get more to the mechanical aspects of the game. And, you know, I mean, there's a little bit when building these things out. You may play a little bit to your character. We'll take a look at one of the character classes, because one of the things that you're going to see, when I say character class, the archetypes, is that there are suggested skills and talents. You're not held to them, but they kind of do help. And usually those are things that they find the game, the writers of the game decided were most thematic for those particular classes. But again, unlike other games, this is not a hard and fast, you have to have these particular skills and talents. It also talks about relationships. What are your relationships with the other player characters at the start of the game? And usually you're going to start off knowing one another, unless you're playing a really, really long form game, which, if anyone has a long, great Vaesen campaign starting off, that'd be a cool thing to see at the start, because I'd love to see how people handle that. That would require a lot of role playing. And then it talks a little bit about resources. Is your character well off? Are they, are they financially ruined? Honestly, could be. It could play into it nicely. There's all kinds of things in there. And finally, they've got mementos, and mementos is something your character is going to have and be normally carrying around with them. Which again, it's another thing that provides an opportunity for role play. This game, it goes a lot further in pushing you to figure out who your character is before you've ever rolled dice for the first time, beyond anything needed to mechanically roll up the character. Before you've rolled, what do we say? Before we've rolled dice in anger. You've got a pretty good idea of who your character is, what are their motivations, and as was mentioned before, some of this stuff works into the game, because you're going to find that the encounters that the game master is running are going to be affected by who your character is. This is one of those games where having a background for your character really is not voluntary. You could play a game of D&D. There are games of D&D that you could play. If you do an old-fashioned dungeon crawl, and every once in a while, it's not my favorite thing anymore, but sometimes it can be fun from like a tournament setting. You can play an old-fashioned game of D&D where dungeon crawling, where you don't need to know anything more than what's on your character sheet. And it's fine. You're basically just there to roll some dice. The Friday Night Crusades, which we're working through on who the next Castle Keeper is going to be, but it does take place in our Discord. It will go once we start up again. It'll be on Friday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. It started off because a bunch of us were bored, And I had thrown out the idea that, well, roll a game, we'll make it very, very casual. I will just use an excuse to roll some dice. Oddly enough, there's more role playing in that game than I ever thought there would be. It's never ceased to surprise me. We don't go quite as deep, we don't go quite as deep in terms of who the characters are, but each of the characters definitely will have personalities and interactions and such, and some go with a little further with the background than others do, and it's very cool. It's all very self-started. For a game like Vaesen, you're coming up with all this stuff because it really is kind of necessary for the game, because the game is very story-based. And that story is in large part dealing with who your character is, why are they on this mission? Because nobody would take this on if they didn't felt they had to. So let's look at one of the classes. We've got the Doctor is one of the archetypes. Actually, this is their talent list. These are talents that can be chosen. You got talents such as Army Medic, Chief Physician, and Emergency Medicine. I don't remember if they get those all to start, or if they have to choose one or two of them. Let's go to Doctor at the start. But as you can see, they have the first name, last name, their possible motivations, possible traumas, and these are things that you can choose from. Dark secrets, they've got suggested dark secrets, and suggestions for relationships. Before you decide that your relationship with another character is "I dream of you at night," please get permission from the other player, because that's a little creepy otherwise. I mean, granted, yes, I understand it's a spooky game, but you still want to be you still want to avoid being that kind of creepy. North Shore GM, we were just talking about the fact that I played, had been playing Dragonbane from Free League. Good to see you, sir. Glad you could drop in. But yeah, there's all kinds of stuff in here in terms of figuring out who your character is. I'm doing very well. Thank you. I appreciate it. And, what they might have on them, what their talents might be. And actually, it looks like they might go back to the Doctor for a second, because I might have answered my own question. Talents. Okay, apparently Army Medic, Chief Physician, and Emergency Medicine are their talents at the start. Yeah, the topic for tonight is min-maxing your character for roleplay, and we're talking a bit about how that works, and how that's either enabled or encouraged by various games, either by having it as part of the rule set, or in some cases like Castle and Crusades I mentioned, where the game kind of just gets out of your way. We're in like Castle and Crusades, it's very self-started. The player needs to decide all that stuff pretty much on their own, because you're not going to find it as part of the actual rules. And, that's fine. It's two different ways of going at it. Well, I'll talk about another game. This one is currently on Kickstarter. And I got to play the demo of it just recently. What was it? On Saturday we did it? I think it was Saturday night. And that is Legend in the Mist. This one's going to be a little trickier because, first of all, the game is not fully out yet. I don't know what the final rules look like. But one of the things I want to show you is the tags. Each character is going to have 4 traits. Each of the different character classes is going to have 4 traits, and those traits are going to have different tags. And let me see if I can find the page that's on. And here's where I find out that those tags are really only covered in the character sheets that they gave that as part of handouts. That's fine. We can take a look at it from the. So okay, here you get a bit of a look at it. I think this one of the three characters that they had available in the pre-gens for the demo was called the Red Marshal. Think of it as the village war, not the village warrior, but kind of like calling him the marshal is kind of weird too, because the connotation that can have. But you kind of think of it as like the main protector of the village. In terms of the physical combat, if they'd be the sheriff or whatever. But they're also a bit of a scout, standing watch, keeping an eye on things in the surrounding areas. And what they have is that, they had three traits. One is called athletic, one is protector of the dale, and then martial training. And underneath each, you'll see various tags. I kind of, some of the tags are a bit more field mechanical in nature, like athletic. The tags are brute strength, runner stamina, climbing, hardened physique. A little bit straight up description of the character, the character's physicality. Then they talk a bit more on like one of the other traits, protector of the dale, has the red armor, which honestly just describes the armor that they use and goes a bit into who the Red Marshal is. There's stand watch, reassuring presence, and such. And what's important to note here is I don't know yet whether or not in the final game you're always going to start off with the same tags for a given class. I think you're going to at least start with the same traits always, but the tags beneath them, you don't get all of those tags to start with. You start off with two. I'll be a little disappointed if you always start off with the same two. I'd be okay if they start off with one of them, like the red armor for the Red Marshal is kind of given, assuming that ends up being one of the classes. But I guess after that, it depends on whether or not you get to choose what comes next. And I also don't know quite yet how leveling works in this game. But mechanically speaking, these choices that you make, assuming that you're allowed to choose the order in which they're taken, work into the game both from talking about who your character is, as well as mechanically speaking, affecting the game. Because when you get down to die rolling, you get to choose which traits and tags are involved. Interestingly enough, there is also a weakness tag on each. Like for athletic, this is going to hurt later, which is mechanically interesting from the standpoint of it's a negative roll. It's a negative when you're rolling, but using it also allows you to get more experience. So, it's an interesting addition. I kind of like it. I also like in Dragonbane where rolling a critical fail also helps you level up your character. Critical fails and critical successes are equal in terms of helping level up your character, which is one of the coolest things ever. You don't feel bad. I mean, granted, okay, maybe you kind of feel bad when you roll a critical fail in Dragonbane, but it still has some benefit for you. So here, you've got something of a description of your character via the tags. And it also has a mechanical impact on the game. So it does encourage you. It really encourages you to use those tags and roleplay to those tags. Because one of the things that has been mentioned is that these tags also have a decay to them, where you can lose those tags if you it's either use it or lose it. And the using it is not just basically saying I'm using this tag for a particular role, but you kind of need to role play towards them as much as possible. Play those aspects of your character up. So again, it does help in the role play. It helps give you an idea of who your character is supposed to be. You don't quite have as much freedom as you might have in other games. It's, you're not building your character to the same level that you would in, say, Pathfinder or I think really honestly even Vaesen. But it does help fill out who your character is and how you want to play them from a role play standpoint. And again, I realize, min-maxing has a very specific connotation for some people. For the purpose of this conversation, I do ask that you kind of let your mind open a little wider than they might normally when it comes to this, the particular topic of min-maxing. There is one last game that I want to mention before we do have our raffle. And let me make sure that those tickets are open, because not that I don't trust Stream Elements, but I don't trust Stream Elements. Okay. We do have a raffle for a $10 gift certificate for a product, or a $10 coupon for a product PDF from the Trollord Games website, makers of Castle Crusades, as well as Amazing Adventures. Right now, there are only 3 people, and there are 4 people entered. Excellent. It is, I believe it, it's exclamation point ticket. So if you want to enter, your odds of winning are really good right now. There's one final game that I want to mention, and one of the nice things about this game is absolutely completely free. And it's a great game for people who like kind of a built-in story. It's meant for short form play. I believe they do have more than one particular type of scenario available. You do have pre-gen characters, but those pre-gen characters are built specifically for the story. You start off the game knowing who your character is. But at the same time, you also have the ability to decide how that character is role played, and it works from both mechanical and mechanical and just pure role play standpoint. So in this particular scenario, they give a couple of I think it's like 4 or 5 different characters. And the first one is, Lady Blackbird herself. And what you're going to notice here is at the top, you've got traits and tags. And you'll see that some of them are filled in, some of them are not. I don't know. I've got to go back and look to see whether or not you necessarily start with all of them. But anytime you go to, these are things that really honestly describe, all of these tags describe the character. Imperial Noble, Master Sorcerer, Athletic, Charming, Cunning, and then the various tags within them. So you get an idea of who your character is supposed to be. You also, with the tags underneath, so like let's go with Cunning. You've got tags for deception, misdirection, disguise, codes, sneak, and hide. You can decide when you're, you get an idea of what your character can do, and different ways you might want to go about things. When you decide to do something in this particular game, what you're going to do is you're going to choose one of those traits. For this character would be Imperial Noble, Master Sorcerer, Athletic, Charm, or Cunning. And you can choose one of those traits, and however many of the tags that fall underneath that particular one, that are filled, that you do have available to you, to help do your as far as die rolling. So when you look at Imperial Noble, I mean, there's etiquette, dance, educated, history, science, wealth, connections, and then House Blackbird. If you're in an encounter that's involving a social setting, being able to do stuff where you're using all those skills your character has, you have a better idea of who your character is. It affects the game itself, and the idea is you're gonna want to be able to take advantage of as many as possible. You're encouraged to use those skills. I mean, again, how hard you role play it. This is the kind of game where if you're not really a fan of being a role player, this is probably not the game for you. Because the person running it is gonna want you to use those skills and at least try your hand at role playing it. I mean, no one is expecting Shakespearean actors here, but at least try to play in character as much as possible, and it really plays well to mechanically supporting the character that you have. Now, again, this is a game where you're not so much building your character. There are pre-gens, and so you're a little bit at the mercy of what's here. But for role-playing purposes, if somebody was going to create a game based on this system where it was a bit more open, this would be a hell of a way to do it. There's also keys. Keys of the Paragon. As a noble, you're cut above the common man. Turn your key when you demonstrate your superiority or when your noble traits overcome a problem. You can also burn these keys to potentially get other keys. You turn a key into experience points, which might allow you to get either different tags and such. And it looks like we're on another ad break. I want to remind everyone, once again, those of you who are here as subscribers, that we are being sponsored by Trollord Games. We do have a giveaway going on. It is exclamation point ticket. There are currently 4 people in the giveaway. Please, if you're able to, do the join the giveaway. I'd love to be able to give, get somebody started on their Trollord Games journey. All right, let's see. Am I back yet? I can't tell if I'm back yet because I don't see ad breaks. I need to figure out a system for that. Excellent. Fantastic. I'm happy that I found the Stream Elements thing to tell me when an ad break was happening, so I could do a quick word from our sponsors. Again, we're talking about the various keys. This is a game that you do start off with pre-gens, but it's really built for role playing. It's built for figuring out how to make the best of who your character is, both from a mechanical standpoint as well as a play standpoint. One helps the other. Really, honestly, the only issue is the fact that it's not a game that is currently set up for creating characters from scratch. I really, honestly, I hope this was helpful. I was trying to figure out how to do this in a way that made sense, and I hope that going through the ways different games handled character building and what was there and what wasn't there helped answer the question a bit. Dirty Dwarf, I'm not sure if you're with us at the moment, because it'd be helpful to know what you thought of it, because you were the person who suggested it. But I want to thank you all for hanging out. It was wonderful to have you. I want to thank those of you who subscribed, those of you who joined the raffle. We are going to do the giveaway in just a minute. Actually, I am going to give it another minute before I close the giveaway. So if you have not done it yet, please join the giveaway for the $10 coupon for a PDF, Troller Games PDF from their website, exclamation point ticket. And we are going to get ready to raid Lord Gazumba. But before we do, waiting for the time to switch over. I have not decided yet what next week's stream is going to be. Next week's stream will be my last one before Founders and Legends and Gary Con, so we'll see what happens with that. I'll probably try to come up with I don't know. I think I might try to come up with a topic related to Castles and Crusades, but I'm gonna leave that open. Join the Discord if you're not already a member, and you can contribute to that conversation. So, going to close the raffle in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And North Shore GM, congratulations. I will get with you afterwards in Discord shortly. Everyone, if you could please hang out while I get the raid set up and we head into Lord Gazumba stream. If you are a subscriber, please get your raid emotes ready. If you're not a subscriber, if you have raid emotes from somebody else, that's fine too. That's going to show up as being rated from this channel, and I find that to be really, really cool. That's awesome. We've got 21 viewers ready to raid. Fantastic. I will see you all next Thursday. Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.